Hello everyone, this video is called Rust for Networks. I realise I've never done a trailer video or an introduction video for this channel, so this will actually become that maybe, we'll see. What I've got on the screen, as you can see, is some code which uses standard FS, standard IO, standard path and colorize. I'm not going to read you the whole code, don't worry. Down in the bottom here you can see we've got a MAC address. So for those of you who don't know what MAC addresses are, they're basically the burned in addresses on hardware. So they are the physical address, so to speak, compared to a logical address, which is what you can assign to layer 3, if you know the 7-layer OSI model. So think of it as the chassis number or the VIN number on your car, and the IP address is more like the registration plate. That's probably the best way I can think of explaining it. And yeah, a little bit about me. I'm learning more and more Rust these days, and let me just show you. I used to be Cisco CCNP, Cisco certified. I could have gone off to Brussels, worked for NATO. I could have gone to Singapore and earned lots and lots of money, but that's not really my style. Doesn't really appeal to me. And a lot of the networking world kind of got hoovered up by the migration to the cloud. Obviously, AWS and Azure, the company I worked for, had lots of contracts with, how should we say, civil service. Don't think that's too controversial. And yeah, lots of contracts got moved to Azure that previously were maintained in a local data center local to me. Anyway, let's go back to Rust. I've been learning Rust now since, I think it was since about January time. I had LinkedIn membership for a while, and I looked around several courses, and one of the courses was Baron Stone. I don't know if you come across Baron Stone, but he's done a really good course on LinkedIn. So I did that back at Christmas time when it was dark, cold, and miserable. Well, it was really cold. So then I bought a book. As you might have known from my other videos, I bought this book, Rust Crash Course. I'm really happy I bought this book. It's, to be honest, I think it's about as good as you could wish for, really. Apart from if it was hardback and had color diagrams, but yeah, the actual content is great. I think it. Not that. Well, let me just clarify that. I've also seen some PDF books of similar Rust kind of get started, beginners to intermediate level of Rust, and obviously the Rust documentation is so good anyway. It kind of makes buying books a bit pointless. But I always like to have one good textbook on a particular language if I'm learning it. So yeah, back to this then. So I've done loads of tutorials. You might have seen kind of I've tried to pick out important bits or bits that I want to remember in the videos I've made so far, on the basis that if I want to remember it and I find it useful, then hopefully other people will. And there's also that saying that if you can't explain something, then you don't understand it. And there's also I think it was Richard Feynman said, the best way to learn something is to try and, I wouldn't say teach, but I'm not beginning enough to say that I teach, but it's just trying to, if you try and make a video that explains something, then yeah, it's useful for you and it helps you, and if it helps other people, so well and good. So I've also migrated from VS Code to neovim. What you see on the screen, yeah, it might surprise you because you might think, well, that looks quite modern, and it doesn't look like kind of some thing that an unshaven man or man with a beard and grey hair from 1970s would use. But trust me, this is It's pretty much Vim. I know it's neovim, but really neovim it uses Vim underneath, so, or VI even. This isn't a history lesson about Vim anyway, so let's have a look at the code I've started working on. And yeah, I'm not here to show it off. I probably should be embarrassed by it, to be fair, but it works, or it kind of works. So that's kind of what I wanted to share with you. And if it inspires you, or you got any comments about how to make it better, then that's a good outcome. So let net equal path new. So we create a new path, and this, if you're not familiar with Linux, sorry Windows users, you could always try this on WSL for Linux, but I doubt if this will be relevant on WSL, because you need to be doing this on the underlying network hardware. But there's still a lot that you can take from this if you're a Windows user, and also this uses excuse me, 2_OS string, which is a way that Rust can make, or attempt to make, a string non-platform specific. Again, look up the documentation. But I'm here to kind of just point things out, and then obviously read things at your leisure. There's no point in me explaining every single thing here, but what we're doing is we are going to this location, and then we're going to read the directory, and what we're going to do is pass out every interface here, which is listed here, and we're going to build a vector. So if you're from a Python background, for instance, a vector is like a Python list. It's an array, but it's an array which lives on the heap, and it can grow. You can actually specify the size of it to begin with. You can use with capacity. If you don't, then it resizes as you go along, slightly less efficiently. If you want to know more about that, for anything really hardcore and technical, or way more technical, John Genset, if you've not seen his videos, I don't know how to spell it. Jgenset, I think. So I digress. We are looking for the available interfaces. So the available interfaces are basically the elements that we read, the strings that we read out of the vector on line. It's line 0 here. I've got the dynamic numbering turned on. So we read the interfaces, and then what we want to do is we want to actually use that interface name. No. What we need to do is we need to capture we ask the user to select from that list of interfaces which we display to them. So we display on this line, we say, these are all the interfaces that we've detected on this Linux operating system. So choose one of those. So type it back in one of those interfaces, and then we'll go and get the MAC address. Why would you want to actually get the MAC address? So potentially, if you were wanting to whitelist a MAC address, for instance, that's something you sometimes need to do. Also, if you wanted to check the hardware. So with a MAC address, the first half of a MAC address is vendor specific. So if you wanted to know if your network adapter was Realtek, for instance, if you get your MAC address, so going back a bit, in the old days, if you wanted to know the vendor of a network card, the PCI Express network card that you put in a PC, you'd have to kind of take the back off, or you'd have to crawl under a desk, get dirty, get some screwdrivers and all that. But doing it this way, you just get the MAC address using this software, and then paste that into Google, and it'll tell you who the vendor is. So that's not always that's not strictly necessary nowadays, I don't know, but it's just useful to be able to get the MAC address for many, many reasons, especially if you work in networks, particularly if you want to whitelist something or potentially even blacklist something. So then we ask the user, and then we just use expect. But what we want to really do is just read the user's input. So the user will type in ETH0 or WLO1 or something. I'll demonstrate in a second. So actually, let's demonstrate it now. So if we come down here, I think with video, sometimes it's better if people demonstrate what it does earlier on, because you don't want to watch the entire video and then find out that the program's a load of rubbish and it's not of interest. So I've compiled it already. Just so, right, so how'd you compile from neovim? So colon, or sorry, double colon, exclamation mark, cargo, and then you can just do R for run. And it's panicked, but don't worry about that. That's just me that needs to do some more error handling. So I've got a terminal open down here. I'm just going to... So with Rust, once it's compiled, if you want to actually run, check the kind of the command line argument interaction, the interaction with the command line, rather than doing it with cargo, actually go and run the binary executable. So I've gone into target /debug. So as always, if you look in target/debug, you'll typically have, ignore the text file, you'll have your binary executable there. You see I've got R1. So because it's not added to path, then I just need to do ./R1 to run it. Choose an interface to view MAC address. And I just need to make my terminal window slightly bigger. There we go. So I've got to choose one of those, and whatever one I put in, it will go and get me the MAC address of. So I know L0 is actually useless, so that's, yeah, it's just all zeros. Let's do a proper one then. So let's run it again. And if you see here, we've got Docker 0. Let's go for WL0, sorry, WLO1 is actually the letter O, not the number 0. So yeah, there's gone and got the MAC address, and it's nice and colored because I used colorize up here, which is really, I think that's really cool. So I'm just going to minimize that again now, so we know what the code does. I'll just explain the rest of it. So we've got that's the other thing, which is good to remember. When we get the choice from the standard input also has a new line character on the end. If you've used C, you'll probably be familiar with this. So every string is actually one character longer than what you actually see, because there's always a new line character on the end, or as if you're reading a line. So that's why we need to use .trim. If that's not there, the program doesn't work. Next, so we've got iFace, let interface path. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the interface path, which is sys/class /net, and then we're actually going to just join on the, let me just show you. So we got that, which is the path. If we come down here, cd, oh sorry, do it up here. So cd sys, what was it? Mine's gone blank. Let's go back in. Sys/class net, yeah. So this is only obviously relevant if you're on a Linux box, but so we've got the interfaces listed there. So if we go to WLO1, and we've got all these files which store information about that network adapter, or that network hardware. So each one of these, well, actually it's not hardware, is it? It's an interface, because that's the Docker's not hardware. WLO1 is obviously hardware. Right, so if we go in, we do view address. There you see, that's the MAC address there. So that's what we're actually capturing with our Rust program. And you've got all these other things you can view. Yeah, if you know about networking, or you kind of know what most of these mean. You can query them. So some of those are specific to wireless. Like power. I don't think you'd get power on Docker 0. Try. Oh, we've got it. Wow. I suspect there's nothing there though. So you can see on different interfaces you get different. Do you get different? Yeah. So there's wireless there, which is not present on the Docker one for obvious reasons. So if we go CD -2, CD minus, there we go. CD and WX, src main, back in our code, and yeah, let's just round up. So what I've got here is we've captured the sys/class net, and then we're going to join the address. So that's the full path, because we need to go to the full path and read what's there, because that's where we're going to actually find our MAC address. Once we've got the MAC address, we run the function, and that's just going to it's going to read the contents, and then it's just going to print it to the screen. And then finally on this line here, we just take the result from that get MAC function, and then we just write it to a text file using standard FS, right? So this really was me experimenting with Rust and capturing or extracting the MAC address from Linux, from a Linux based or Linux Mint laptop and sys/class net, that path. This was code which I didn't write, but I am going to dissect it and I'm going to break it down into chunks and try and just learn each of the chunks, and with a view to then being able to put them together and write something similar myself in due course. I kind of understand what it does, but if you sat me down and asked me to write it from scratch, I probably would not have been able to do that. Especially the to_os_string, I hadn't come across that previously. Filter map is obviously like map, but it also filters out anything that doesn't match. Yeah, so you got the directory, the kind of the light green thing there, that I might turn that off in the it does just add a lot of visual clutter, and it's useful, but I don't, probably for doing videos, maybe I should turn it off. Yeah, and just one last thing, I'll talk about my editor. So yeah, I'm using not my editor, I'm using neovim, my terminal emulator. So this is called Tabby, and I think it uses Node.js under the bonnet, and it did say make sure you're not short of memory, but to be honest, it's very quick, and yeah, the one thing, if you saw my other video, I put a note in the description about, what was it? Profile, terminal. Yeah, this here. I changed to Xterm Canvas instead of WebGL. The reason being is that with WebGL, when I scrolled, some of the characters would then kind of get shifting up and overlapping. Difficult to describe, but yeah, it's almost like there was a bit of memory in the where the lines have shifted. The old letters were overlapping the new letters, if that makes sense. But I can really recommend Tabby so far after kind of half a day of use. I know that's not maybe not a long time, but yeah, it's really it's nice, it's usable, and it does the job. So yeah, so that's hopefully been a little insight into what I'm doing. Kind of, I'm hoping it's reassuring for anybody who's learning Rust because, yeah, 6 months ago I would have just glazed over if I'd seen this, but now I can kind of I can describe what it does and I can edit and fix most of this. Yeah, I didn't write this bit from scratch, but I was able to paste it in and tweak it and make sure it worked. And I was able to refactor this slightly to create my own function. I was able to work with strings, string literals, and string slices, and also borrow. So you notice here on down here, we're borrowing the MAC address. So yeah, obviously borrowing is a key feature of Rust and good to get your head around. So yeah, I'm combining my experience with networks with my newfound knowledge with Rust. So I think I mentioned recently, it's always good to kind of try and merge what you know with try and merge what you know already with what you're trying to learn, because then you've kind of got something that you're experienced and knowledgeable about. Oh, sorry, I was up early. I work a bully today, and yeah, it's catching up with me. But thanks for watching, and if there's anything you would like me to cover, I would say my channel is kind of beginner to intermediate level. If you're watching this video for the first time and you're new to the channel, so yeah, don't expect miracles, but at the same time, I think it's sometimes nice to watch somebody who sometimes struggles, or somebody who makes mistakes, or somebody who's learning things, and it's good to see how somebody can go from naught to from scratch to being able to write programs that are kind of semi-useful. The idea I had, I'll just fill you in. The idea that I had for this was to actually write a MAC address changer, but my lack of Linux expertise, I've got Linux knowledge, but I wouldn't call it expertise. I forgot that even with sudo, you can edit sys class sys/class/net. You can edit those files. It might only be you can't edit those files when they're in use, or I don't know. But let me know. Have you written a MAC address changer? Is that possible? I don't know. Obviously, a MAC address changer is quite niche, but it's got there's reasons for it, especially in kind of security or whatever the opposite of security is, which I'm not going to go there because I don't want to get struck off from YouTube or whatever. But yeah, thanks for watching, and many comments as possible, thumbs up and all the subscribe and all the usual stuff that all the YouTube people say. But yeah, feel free to add comments and just make suggestions. And if you think neovim's rubbish and you know something that's way better, I know VS Code's fine. If you're knowledge of Vim is 0. Once you know a bit of Vim, it's just, for instance, copying and pasting lines. It's just, it's just. Well, I'm not going to demonstrate, but yeah, just yank, paste. That's like that's 3 button presses in. You could probably do that in like 0.01 of a second or something. Whereas to do that in VS Code, you'd have to go up here, click, and then you go across there, and then Control C, and then press Enter, and then Control V, and yeah, it's painful, isn't it? And my other kind of reason for switching to this is I kind of got fed up with so I did install the VS Code Vim extension, but I really did get quite fed up with that because half the time it was kicking in, and the other half the time the mouse was trying to do. They were almost fighting against each other. So then I switched off the Vim extension for VS Code, and then I realised how painful it is to actually do all the Control C, Control V, and selecting stuff with the mouse. So yeah, I wouldn't say it was I threw my toys out the pram, but yeah, something like that. I just thought, well, and as I mentioned in the other video, I watched John Jangset, and I always kind of just thought that neovim was just a glorified text editor. But to be honest, if you've got Rust Analyzer, is there anything else you need? Maybe there is. And obviously there is probably more that I should be doing or can do to customize this. But as you can see, you've got kind of the type completion. I've got I've got the standard library auto completion here. So I don't know if there's anything I'm missing. Might be. But I think you need to focus on where your weaknesses are, and my weakness is not really the IDE or the code editor or the lack of. It's kind of programming knowledge. So I think I'll worry about some kind of GitHub Copilot extension or whatever for neovim down the line. But for now, I think to get more expertise with Vim is probably. I think what the time that you save by using Vim outweighs any potential loss of time by not having a little clicky button in VS Code. So that's my thoughts, and yeah, I'll wrap it up here because I'm rambling. But thanks for watching. Please subscribe, thumbs up, and all that. And any suggestions, I'll catch you again next time.